Hey everyone, TV Rizzo here, and well, as we continue to touch on some of my highlights, I figured it was back in October when I was doing my big kickoff binge. I watched the newest version of The Grudge, and in that review, I did speak quite highly of Ju-on, or specifically Ju-on the Grudge, and so figured it was a good time to touch on that one. So here we are. Now, Ju-on has an interesting production history. Now, Ju-on the Grudge is the easiest of the Japanese Ju-ons to find in America, along with its follow-up, Ju-on the Grudge 2. Usually these ones are just over here, just called Ju-on. Now, this Ju-on the Grudge is a remake of Ju-on the Curse. It's listed as a remake, but they're not exactly. This is more of a sequel than a remake, but it kind of at the same time disregards. And there's essentially a couple films that actually came before that, namely the Curse and the Curse 2. Now, kind of hard to figure out where everything fits in with that, especially since those is usually labeled as a remake. It only came out 2 years after the original, so I like to think of it as more of a follow-up than a straight remake because the plots are different enough. So, first time I saw this movie, it scared me. It scared me a lot. Now, I was much younger then, a much younger Phoebe Rizzo, and I will say some coincidences that happened while watching it the first time maybe added to that a little bit. But we'll get to that in a second. So, the story involves, well, a curse that was placed on a house after a very violent murder took place there, which caused the death of a family, a then a husband and wife, and their son, Toshio, and their cat. None of them survived. Though the boy is technically just listed as missing. And it pretty much throws you right into that, and then every time someone stays in the house, the history repeats itself. Something goes weird. And then things get knocked all over. There's sightings of a ghost boy, cats are yowling, and a very creepy woman appears. Followed with a very terrifying sounding death rattle. I can't do it well, but you know what I mean if you've seen the movie. Now, this was remade as The Grudge, which isn't a bad film, but it does definitely Americanize a lot of Ju-on, and there is some strong points. This one, its main weak point is how quickly it throws you into everything. It hits the ground running. You get the initial crime that caused the haunting, and then immediately you're beset with things. And this movie shot out of order, essentially, which is cool, but it doesn't really tell you that. You just have to kind of figure it out. So it picks up with one character, like a title card announcing a character that will be following will pop up, and you'll follow that character until something terrible happens. Then a new name will pop up, and you'll have to. It takes a little while to figure out where in continuity that is taking place. The American one doesn't do the continuity jumping thing, which is a shame because my favorite scenes in this one were set kind of further in the future, and the American one omits them entirely. But what the American thing does a little bit stronger is they build up the characters a little bit more, so you have a chance to get to know the people before they're having terrible things happen to them. As well as they don't just show what happened to the family initially, they build it up and let you figure out as it goes along. So that I did like more than the original, but that's like the only thing that the American one does better, except for perhaps some of the effects. But this one overall, it has a very creepy vibe to it. Now, watching it again so many years later, does lose a little bit of the punch it once had for me. This one used to unsettle me to a very strong degree, and perhaps because I know the story so well, it doesn't do that nearly as well, but there's still some very creepy imagery in this. That said, the first instances of a haunting, the CGI is very bad. But it's just one scene, one moment. Other than that, the effects are fine. And I do like the subtlety this movie has. A lot of times, you'll have to be paying attention to catch everything. It's an old man who's playing peekaboo with a ghost. They only show you he's doing it with a ghost in one scene, one moment, and you have to see it right. Is it just a reflection of a door closing and shows it? You blink, you miss it. So, essentially, as this one goes along, the more people get tied up and pulled into it, well, they're become a part of it, and the stain spreads, and, well, anyone who comes in contact with it, or even if you even meet someone who's come into contact with it, you might become haunted as well. First time I saw this movie, I was a very young boy. Well, maybe not very young. I was high school when this one came out. This one was 2002. Now, living with my mother, watching, then she was pretty strict about a bedtime. But late night, the dark, watching a scary movie, that's when you do it. So, that's what I did. However, when I started the movie, well, there's still some noises going on, so you hear a ghost boy running around in here, and suddenly, from upstairs, I hear someone go running also. It added a little something. Also, there's a scene in this movie where a TV freaks out. It just, like, phrases won't turn off, makes that death rattle sound, the face distorts. It's really creepy. It's one of the stronger scenes in the movie. And about that time, then I heard some noise from the top and thought, oh, I'm about to be caught watching a movie late night and shouldn't. I turn off the TV to try to pretend I'm not awake. Take a step and the TV turns back on. Now, I was using a very janky TV at the time where the power button was actually broken, so that happened sometimes. But the fact that it happened right then got to me. That was the first time it had happened, too. Like, I knew the power button was broken, but it was the first time it turned itself back on. It had since done it a few more times. But, now, it is dated. Very dated. Particularly in the effects budgets, and it doesn't hold up as strongly as it used to. So back in the day, I probably would have given this one 5 MacGuffins. It's still iconic enough that I'm giving it 4, and do recommend if you haven't seen it to definitely check it out. But it is a movie of diminishing returns, unfortunately. That said, it's a strong story, and the acting is very good. I do recommend Ju-on the Grudge. I've only tangentially seen things for Ju-on the Curse, so I can't speak to that film yet. I intend to. I'd like to get to it someday, but at this point I have not. And in America, only Ju-on and Ju-on 2 are easily available, to my knowledge. However, I knew there was a couple sequels, namely White Ghost and Black Ghost, but apparently went on a couple more movies after that, so I've got a lot of catching up to do in the world of Ju-on. Well, that should be all for this one. I'll probably have another review up in a day or so, because what else am I going to do during all this when the world's shut down, huh? Alright, thanks for taking a look, and again, I do highly recommend Ju-on. Even if it doesn't hold up. If you're into Japanese horror at all, it's an icon. It deserves to be seen. Take care.